Barak Yahawah, Bahashem Yahawashi, Bahashem Rawchaa Qadash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is The Importance of the Origins of Words. And pretty much this is a lesson based off of, dealing with these root words and pretty much the original language that the scriptures are written in, because you have individuals out there that don't want to get into the etymology of words, and they pretty much, curse us out because we get into it, and they accuse us of not, being able to explain the scriptures in the English. They accuse us of making Hebrew a doctrine, which Hebrew is a part of the doctrine. I don't know where this fervent hatred of our language comes from, but it's just, crazy, that you would have somebody that would kick against the truth like that. Like Yahawashi told the Apostle Paul when he was Saul, why kickest thou against the pricks? Because the whole earth is going to revert back, to the Hebrew language. Everything is going to go back to the way it was. So I don't understand what's this big, push and kickback and hatred of our language. It's crazy. But, this is what happens when you take the bag. This is what happens when you're separated from the body of Yahawashi. You're susceptible to anything. So we're gonna deal with a couple of scriptures, in the English form, and then going back to the Hebrew to give you, an understanding of what is meant by that. Now, there was a precept that came to mind. Let's go to it before I forget it again. 1 Corinthians chapter 14. It's very easy. Look, scriptures say, and we go back to Isaiah 28, that we would be speaking in a different tongue, a different language. And that is so. We're not saying that you have to know the Hebrew 100% or you will not be saved, even though we've been accused of that. And these same individuals, they love to talk about when people slander them, but they love to slander, boy. They love slapping those slanders around, but when it comes upon them, they don't like it. But we never said that if you don't know the Hebrew backwards and forwards, you will never be saved. We said that you should go back to our language, especially learn the names of Yahawah and Yahawashi, and it's a good feeling when you pick up the Torah and you read the Torah, the Torah, and you'll be able to read through it and pick out certain words and know what they mean. That's a good feeling. I don't know about you, but it's a good feeling to me when I'm able to pick the Torah up and look through it, and I can identify certain words out of it. We don't speak it perfect. We don't speak it, 100%, but we have a working knowledge of how to get around it, how to go through it. Same thing with the Greek. We have some knowledge of the Greek, some knowledge of the Latin, because it's important to know these languages, because these are the original languages that the Bible was written in. So let's read this, and then I got something else I'm going to share with you, which you already know. Most of you already know. Let's see. Let me just bear with me 1 second. Right. 1 Corinthians 14:13, because the brother posted the precept. Isaiah 28:11, for with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people. And that is true. But as the young elder posted, Zephaniah 3:9, for then will I turn to the people a pure language, that they may all call upon the name of the Lord to serve him with one consent. Right, and the Lord is returning us back. And there's many precepts on that. But there's a big pushback on it. Nevertheless, 1 Corinthians 14:13. Wherefore Wherefore let him that speaketh in an unknown tongue pray that he may interpret. Right. So if you're speaking in an unknown tongue, in this case, what? The Hebrew, because none of our people out here speak Hebrew. That's a given. You have some jakes that might know the small hat language, but that is a very small amount or very small ratio in comparison to the rest of Jake. Jake barely knows how to speak English or Spanish, let alone the Hebrew. But it says, if anyone speak in an unknown tongue, pray that he what? May interpret. What does it mean to interpret? It means to be able to explain it in another language. Let's go to the word interpret. The word interpret is diermayuo. It says to unfold the meaning of what is said, explain, expound, to translate into one's native language. Even right there, it breaks it down at what it's talking about. It ain't talking about that shatana na na na, malalala, Osaka, or whatever the fuck they be saying. It's talking about speaking in another tongue, in another language. It even breaks it down here. To interpret. Right, when you see, those of you that watch boxing events, when you see the boxing events, sometimes, or UFC or whatever the case may be, sometimes a person doesn't speak the English. They might speak Portuguese, they might speak Spanish, they might speak a different language. And then you'll have what? An interpreter that speaks both languages, both English and whatever native language that people speaking, and they're interpreting and translating back and forth for the two parties to understand each other. So the purpose for understanding or breaking it down or interpreting it is for the purpose of the understanding of the listeners, so they can understand what is meant. But if you don't go into the origin of the language, you will not be able to get the understanding of what is being said, because you're going to be left a little cloudy or hazy, especially in certain places where the English is written that it doesn't seem to make sense. So you have to go back into the original language. This is why sometimes brothers go into different translations which break down. Sometimes those translations go totally off, but every once in a while they give you a little more clearer understanding. But how much more clearer can you get than when you go into the actual language, as we just did here, to translate into another into one's native language, so that what? They can understand the ermenuo or yuao, however you say it. Right? So wherefore let him that speaketh in an unknown tongue, meaning what? In a tongue that is not known, that you don't understand, another language. It's not talking about that, that demonic shit that they teach in these or speak in these so-called charismatic movement churches. You could look that up, the charismatic movement, because the charismatic movement are these different churches that speak in so-called tongues. Just bear with me 1 second. All right, just wanted to jot something down right quick like. So let's go back. It says, for if I pray in an unknown tongue, my spirit prayeth, but my understanding is unfruitful. So if you don't understand, or if the people that are listening to you don't understand, they can't give thanks. It says, what is it then? I will pray with the spirit, and I will pray with the understanding also. I will sing with the spirit, and I will sing with the understanding. So the point is to make them understand, and the main thing to understand is that the Bible that's written in the English in these different languages was not originally written in those languages. So sometimes the meaning is lost. All right. When we go to, I typed in what languages were the English Bible translated from. While early English Bibles were generally based on a small number of Greek texts or on Latin translations, modern English translations of the Bible are based on a wider variety of manuscripts in the original languages. The what? Original languages. What does it mean by original? The origins. The base of the origin of that particular language, or where these Where did this English language come from? Where did this translation come from? Oh, it comes from the what? Mostly Greek and Hebrew. So if it comes from mostly Greek and Hebrew, would it not make sense to go back to the Greek and the Hebrew to understand what is said in that language, then to get a better understanding of the English translation that we're reading? I don't see what's so hard about that. Then we go down here. Are there 3 original languages of the English Bible? Scholars generally recognize 3 languages as original biblical languages: Hebrew, which we have the Lashawan Qadash; Aramaic, which is the Syrian script; and Koine Greek. Those are the main languages. And then when we go back to the time of Yahawashi, you even had, people that spoke Latin. They spoke Greek, they spoke Latin, they spoke Hebrew. Those are the 3 predominant languages back in Israel at that time, because you had Israelite foreigners. I see the El Dominican in the house. Shalom. I know he gonna get into this. When you go back to that time, the predominant languages that were being spoken was right here. St. John 19:19, and Pilate wrote a title and put it on the cross. This is when Yahawashi was crucified. And the writing was Yahawashi of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. This is why when you look at certain jewelry and they have that banner over the Jesus piece, in this case, Caesar Borgia, they have that banner over him. The banner says INRI. INRI is the Latin writing for Yahawashi of Nazareth, King of the Jews. Jesus, I'm not sure of how to say Nazareth in the Latin, Nazareo, or however it goes. Rex Judei. So Yahawashi, Yahawashi of Nazareth, King of the Jews. So when you see that INRI, now you know what it means. Those of you that didn't know. It says, this title then read many of the Jews. This title then what? Read many of the Jews. And by the way, shalom to any apostles, bishops, elders, brothers out there, sincere, are watching, and shalom to the sisters. I just don't want to make it just say shalom to the El Dominican and that's it, man. The lady for y'all. That's just joking. This title then read many of the Jews, for the place where Yahawashi was crucified was nigh to the city, right? Because he had to be crucified outside of the city. In this case, what they call the place of skulls. All right. And it was written. What was written? The title, the banner that was put over the Lord's head, and it was written in what? In Hebrew and Greek and Latin. Why? Because those were the major predominant languages. And even today, when you're studying theology, to be on a scholarly level, you have to know Hebrew, Greek, and Latin, because those are the predominant languages that the scriptures are written in. And it was first written in Hebrew, then you had Greek translations, and then during the time of what was his name? It's been so long. I forget his name. He was one of the church fathers. I believe he was around the 4th century, which he had the Bible translated into Latin, which is called the Vulgate. Now the Vulgate comes from the word vulgar, which means vulgar does not mean obscene. Vulgar means, public. But it doesn't mean public among the people, the common people. It was just public among the clergy. Because the Latin, the Greek, and certain languages back then were only spoken by learnt men. The populace only spoke the lingua franca, or the common language of the time. They didn't speak learnt languages. This is how they knew if you were a commoner or if you were, a person that was of nobility or of a higher learning, because of the languages you spoke. All right. So these were the 3 predominant languages, and that's what the Bible was written in. But in this case, it doesn't use the word Latin because it came later. Oh, Jerome. Jerome was his name. Jerome. Or I believe he was around the 300 or 400 AD, around there. And he translated the Bible into the Latin, which was called the Vulgate, because he wanted to hide the Bible from the common folk, because they had something called, the different damnable heresies and the different cunningly devised fables that they used to bewitch the people and to keep the people under the control of the Roman Catholic Church. This is why when the Bible started to be translated into the English, a lot of those individuals that were translating the Bible into English were being put to death. Why? Because they were making the Bible open so that those common folk can understand the Bible, and they did not want that. When you watch the movie Robin Hood, the one with Jamie Foxx, and that, the Edomite looking dude that played in Kingsman, in there was a part where he was in the room with the Archbishop, the dude that Abraham, his name is Abraham Murray or something like that. And Abraham Murray paid the Archbishop. And the individual came in there and said that they was trying to instill fear in this individual. He said, oh, fear. He said, the greatest arsenal in God's weaponry. This is why the church created hell. You see? So now if the people were able to go and understand, the different languages that were written, and they look up the word hell, they would understand, wait a minute, hell is not a place where you go and burn forever. Hell is nothing more than the grave. You see? Or being at peril of being put to death, or death itself. But it has nothing to do with a place you go to burn forever. And this is why they didn't want, because that would take control out of the hands of the church fathers, so-called. So getting into the word etymology. Etymology is a compound word. Eta means true, and ology is where you get the word study or word, right? Because it's the study of the true origin of the root of a word. And when you understand the root of a word, it helps you understand the definition of the word better. All right? It says late 14th century, etymologia, facts of the origin and development of a word. See? So facts of the origin and development of a word. Where did these words come from? Because when you look at the English is a bastardized language that is comprised of many different languages. A close language to English is the German. Guten Morgen, it's good morning. And it's like many different other words that are related. But a lot of the words in English go back to the Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. Like you have the word aluminum. That's an English word, but the word aluminum is actually a Latin word. It's so on and so forth. There's many different examples. It says from Old French and French, Middle Modern French, from Latin, etymologia, from Greek, etymologia, analysis of a word to find its what? True origin. Because the true origin of the word gives you the sense of what it's meant. Like when you look up the word G-A-Y, right? Happy, right? And the other sense. When you look that word up, today, the commonality of it is a rainbow spark, that flutters. But when you go back to the origin of the language, it just simply means happy. Or you could have G-A-Y clothing, which is what? Clothing that is worn in kings' palaces. But the corruption of it today is that, they associate it with the rainbow movement. But even the rainbow itself was corrupted. Because a rainbow is a beautiful, covenant and a beautiful symbol of the Most High that symbolizes that he will never again destroy the earth by water. But they took it and corrupted it. But when you go to the true origin of these things, the true actual words, you get the sense on the understanding of it properly. Study of the true sense of a word, which with logia, study of, speaking of, right, because it goes back to the word logos. Etymon, true sense, original meaning. See, neuter of etymos, true, real, actual. So it just goes back to the true origin of a word. And what is that? You have to go back into the true origin of the of the language, English, all the way back to, Hebrew. Hebrew is the base for all languages. All right, when we go to Genesis 11, all right, and I'm going to read this that the elder put up. Khan, like the word lad, means a young boy, and in Hebrew it is yalad, beautiful, which means the same thing, correct. Beautiful, beautiful. So Genesis 11:1, it says, and the whole earth was of what? Of one language and of one speech. And it's going to go back to that. Now, you have different dialogues, if I'm using the word correctly, because even among Israel, we spoke the Hebrew, we all spoke Hebrew, but everyone had like a certain way that they would pronounce words. Like I believe that's in the book of Joshua. When, they knew that the Ephraimites couldn't pronounce a certain word, so they knew that you was an Ephraimite based on a particular Hebrew word if you could pronounce it or not. But the language itself was of one language and one speech, And then during this time, the Lord caused the language to be broken up, to make the people that were building this ancient New World Order to cease building this tower or this New World Order, because the Lord wasn't with that. He was never with that. Because if he was with the New World Order, he would have allowed it to happen from the beginning. Okay? Now, in the book of Ecclesiastes 5:15, it says, be not ignorant of anything in a great matter or a small. And just understand that the learning of the Hebrew and the Greek language is not important to learn the whole language unless your spirit is just there, unless you could do that, unless, you have that type of mind to be able to learn those things. But it's not important for salvation. But what is important is to understand certain key words, have a functioning ability to get around in those different languages to understand what the Bible is saying. For the sake of the Bible, for the sake of understanding the origin of certain words. That's pretty much the point. Anything else, is just extra gravy. Everything has knowledge, everything has wisdom, but then there's knowledge and wisdom that's profitable, and there's knowledge and wisdom that's not profitable. We're looking for the things that are profitable, So when we go to the prologue of Ecclesiasticus, which was written by Jesus, the son of Sirach, right? What I believe that's either his father or his grandfather, what he did was he was into learning. He loved learning. He was a philosopher. He loved wisdom. He was a lover of wisdom. So he liked to read. He liked to get into things, to enhance and to build up his mind with knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. So what he did was he undertook a huge workload to take the things that he's learned, right, in these words, in these scriptures, to translate them into the Greek tongue, so that those that were desirous to learn can get the same benefit of the knowledge that he was giving them, that he learned, so that they can see the beauty of those pearls. But he even within that prologue said, listen, just please excuse us, because the same things that are written in the Hebrew language, when they're translated into another tongue, are not as powerful as they are when you go to the original language. See? So he understood that, because there are certain things that are what they call lost in translation. And when things are lost in translation, you don't get the full impact or the full effect. You'll get somewhat of an understanding, but you won't get the same effect or impact unless you go back to the original language, the original source that was written in. Then you're like, oh, okay, I see now. I understand now. It makes sense. That's why this is written this way and that way. A good example we always use is the Spanish language. You could say, and even the English language, you could say a riddle in Spanish, and the riddle in Spanish people will laugh because it's funny, plus it rhymes. But then when you translate it into the English, you get somewhat of an understanding of what it said, but it doesn't rhyme and it doesn't really make sense in the English language unless you go back to the Spanish and translate it. Same thing in the English. You could say something in the English is funny, but then when you try to translate it in Spanish, it's not as funny. You see? So let's read this. It says, "Wherefore let me entreat you to read it with favor and attention, and to pardon us wherein we may seem to come short of some words, which we have labored to interpret," right? It says, "For the same things uttered in Hebrew and translated into another tongue have not the same what force in them. And not only these things, but the law itself and the prophets and the rest of the books have no small difference when they are spoken in their own language." So if they don't have the same force in another language, what should we do? We should go back to the etymology or the true origin of that word to get a better understanding. What's wrong with that? All right. Now, let's deal with the word M to the R to the A to the K. All right. When we go to the book of Acts 15 and 39, it says, "And the contention was so sharp between them that they departed asunder one from another." This is dealing with Paul and Barnabas. "And so Barnabas took Mark and sailed unto Cyprus." Now you see the word Mark here, name. Then you have another Mark. So you have the word M to the A to the R to the K appears 37 times and 36 verses in the KJV from Genesis all the way to Revelation. In the book of Acts, it's speaking about a personal name of Mark, Mark's personal name. You had Mark that rode with the Apostle Paul and them, and when you go to the origins of that name, you have the word Marcos, which a lot of Ephraimites are named Marcos, which means a defense. It says, "An evangelist, the author of the Gospel of Mark. Marcus was his Latin surname. His Jewish name was John. He was a cousin of Barnabas and a companion of Paul in some of his missionary journeys." So this M to the A to the R to the K, which is a personal name, is different from others. So how can we know the difference? By going back to the origin of the word to find out what it means because why is it written here M-A-R-K, right? This is a personal name. Then you go to Romans 16 and 17. "Now I beseech you, brethren, mark them which cause divisions and offenses contrary to the doctrine which you have learned, and avoid them." So what does it mean here? Because obviously it's not the same. This is why here the first letter is capitalized as a personal name. Here all the letters are small case. So this word for Mark here is the word what? The Greek word skopeo. Now, how hard was that? Just to look this up real quick. And how long did that take? Not very long. Skopeo means what? To look at, observe, contemplate. Right. You're looking at something, you're observing it. To mark, to fix one's eyes upon, direct one's attention to anyone, to look to, take heed to thyself. So this is obviously a different word for Mark than the surname or the proper name Mark. And then when we scroll down here, you have a few precepts where that same Greek word appears. So in Luke 11:35, take heed. So the word Mark means to scope or to beware. Therefore that the light which is in thee be not darkness. Romans 16:17, which we already read. 2 Corinthians 4:18, while we look not at the things which are seen. So to beware or to mark means to scope out, keep your eye on it. Like you have a microscope. What do you do with a microscope? You're scrutinizing something. All right? Galatians 6:1. Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. So you're considering, you're scoping. This is what? Self-examination. So all of these mean the same thing. Philippians 2:4. Look not every one on his own things, but every man also on the things of others. In other words, don't just look out for yourself, look out for others also. All right? In other words, beware. Scope out. Philippians 3:17. Brethren, be followers together of me, and mark them which walk also as you have us for an example. So you can scope those that are changing the doctrine with their fair speeches, and you could also scope men of like mind that are walking the path of the gospel, that are practicing what they preach. So now we got a better understanding of that word. All right, beautiful. This is Proverbs 14:15. The simple believeth every word, but the prudent man looketh well to his going. That's right. All right, so going back, now we go back because we have more MARKs. So we had the proper name mark. We had the scopeo, right? Which we also read this one. Did we read this one? Press towards the mark. No, we didn't read this one. Be ye followers of me. So here, when it says Philippians 3:14, I press toward the mark for the prize of the high calling of the Most High in Yahawashi. This word mark is the actual root word to scopeo, which is the word scopos. All right. So it says an observer, a watchman, the distant mark looked at, the goal or end one has in view. Like when you run in a race, you have your eyes on what? On the finish line. Because once you cross the finish line, the race is over. All right. So it's the same thing because you're paying attention to that mark. You're paying attention. That's where we want to be at the finish line. All right. So it's used in the same way as scopeo because it is the root word to scopeo. All right. And then that's the only time it appears as the word scopos. All right. Right, it goes back to the Greek skapo or skapto, which means to dig, and skeptasia or skeptasma, raiment. All right, so let's go back. And that didn't take that long. Yep, beautiful, beautiful. Let me read a couple of these. 2 Timothy 2:15, study to show thyself approved unto the Most High. Right, the word study means to scrutinize. How do you scrutinize? You have to scope it out. Stay yourselves in wonder. Cry ye out and cry. A workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Right, because you can't rightly divide the word of truth if you don't understand what is written. And you won't fully understand what is written unless you go to the origins of the language of when it was written. 1 Thessalonians 5:21, prove all things and hold fast to that which is good. Right, and the scripture also say, make full proof of thy ministry. So now going back, now we have the word in 2 Timothy dealing with Mark again. Then the other word for MARK appears in the book of Revelation from the 13th chapter all the way to the 20th chapter. And this word is totally different from the other words. But you wouldn't know that because you're a big fried chicken eating mother. No, let me stop. You wouldn't know that unless you go to the word. Because you're expecting to, when you go here, oh, is that Marcos? Or is that Scopeo or Scopos? You wouldn't know what is meant unless you go to the word. And then the word is charagma. That's a totally different word for the surname or the proper name mark and the other words that we looked up. All right? And it gives you a definition, a stamp, and a printed mark. You know the whole shebang. All right? And this also appears in another scripture but doesn't use the word mark. It uses the word graven. Because you graven what? You graven idols, whether wood, stone, or whatever. You graven them out of silver, gold, or whatever. And what do you use? You use a chisel to cut into that thing, to sculpt it, to the idol you want. So this word karagma has a sense of cutting into. And even when you go to the root word, is the same thing. But you wouldn't know that unless you look at it. This is why you have individuals that say, okay, well, and he calls it all, Revelation 13:16, he calls all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive an MARK in their right hand and on their forehead. Yeah, that's like the Most High has his mark and Esau has his mark. It's the same thing. No, it's not. Because when you go to the Most High's mark in Ezekiel 9:4, it's speaking about, an exemption from judgment. This is speaking about something that's going to identify you as a servant for life to a particular master. Two total different words. The English word is the same, but it means something totally different. This is why when you look up certain words in the English as a definition, there's so many different definitions depending on what the word is. All right? Now, when we switch it up, and we go to the book of St. John chapter 3, right? And 16, this has been the go-to scripture for Christians, for these fake-ass Christians, these cheap veneer Christians, for a long time, Tony. And what happened was, through the spirit and power of Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi and the Rawchaa Qadash, the Hebrew Israelite myth busters done excavated around this scripture and found the etymology of the word for world, and that put a damper in these people's breakdown. Because what happened is, you got to understand, this was a stronghold for centuries for these devils. They had the world on lock with this one. This is why you never hear them go to this anymore. Why? Because it's been busted down. You've been busted down, okay, troop? Inside joke. So it says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. And at first glance, it's talking about the whole world. But not understanding that there are different worlds in the scriptures. So when we look up this word world, you have the word cosmos. The word cosmos goes back to komitzo, right? It says an apt and harmonious arrangement or constitution, order, government, ornament, decoration. So it's pretty much an organization, an arrangement, of people that are in the same mindset or governed by the same rules. Okay? So it's an apt and harmonious arrangement or constitution, order, government. It's not talking about the whole world. Here, when it says world and universe, no, this is BS. That's not what it means. It doesn't mean the circle of the earth. It doesn't mean the earth. It doesn't mean the inhabitants of the earth, man, and the human family. This is all BS. It means an apt and harmonious arrangement. All right? Organization. And this organization is what? It goes into the organization of the Israelites. And this is why when we go to the same book of John, but 17th chapter, and the 9th verse, it all of a sudden says, I pray for them, I pray not for the world. Wait a minute, is this a contradiction? Or is it just a case of lost in translation? Somebody let me know. Lost in translation meaning. It says to fail to have the same meaning or effectiveness when it is translated into another language. Now, how easy was that? How easy was that? But no, see, they can't break it down into English. They have to go to the Paleo Hebrew or to the Koine Greek. They could never break down their doctrine into English. Well, because the English was not the original language it was written in. And then you have something called loss in translation. Do you guys not believe in the Apocrypha anymore? Did not the man say in the Apocrypha that the partners will be may come short of some words? Which the same things that are written in Hebrew and translated into another language have not the same force in them? So common sense would tell you, well, if that's the case, well, let me go back to the origin of the word so I could see what is said. Yeah, easy as 1, 2, 3, right? A, B, C. And when we go here, right, I pray for them, I pray not for the world, but for them which thou hast given me, for they are thine. When we go there to the word world, is cosmos. The same word that we read, you know, in St. John 3:16. These go hand in hand. It's an apt harmony, or an organization, a government, a group of people governed by the same laws. All right. Now let's move into the next word, English word for the word world. Let's go to Matthew chapter 13. And we're going to go straight to the point. Well, you know, I start here at 38. Matter of fact, I start at 37. He answered and said unto them, this is Yahawashi speaking to the disciples. He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man, which is Yahawashi. The field is the world. This is talking about, let me see which world this is talking about. This is talking about cosmos, which is the organization of the Lord, the Israelites. And pretty much the Israelites have been scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Right? It could have used the word oikumene, but it didn't. It used the word cosmos because the Israelites are the ones scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. It says the enemy that sowed them is the devil, the harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. As therefore the tares are gathered and burned in the fire, so shall it be what in the end of this world. What world? When we go to the end of this world, the word there is eon. Now what is eon? Eon is a uninterrupted rule of time period. When you go here, it says forever. It doesn't mean forever. It could be used in that sense, forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. But it's all dealing with time. An unbroken age, right? Unbroken age. When you deal with the age of the so-called zodiacs. The so-called zodiacs, I can't remember if it was 2,125 years. So each 2,125 years, I believe it's that, or it could be somewhere around there, you have an age where one zodiac is ruling for that a certain period of time, and then after that, that's the end of Pisces or the end of Aquarius, the beginning of so-and-so. This is why Esau, that demonic song, this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. All right. You also have eons as far as dealing with empires that rule for a certain period of time. All right. Right. And like the brother put 2nd Ezra 6:9, for Esau is the end of the world. This word world is synonymous with this word world, which is eon. Here, I believe is seculi when you go to the Latin, but it's eon in the Greek. In the Hebrew, it's iwalam. They all convey the same thing, an unbroken age or a certain period of time. And Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. Yeah, because the kingdom is for the Israelites, Yahawashi and the Israelites. Perpetuity of time, eternity, the world, universe. Nah, they keep throwing all these other words in there, but it doesn't mean all of that. Period of time, age. All right, let's see what it says for age. the length of time that a person has lived or anything has existed, a distinct period of history, see? A distinct period of history. You had the Neolithic age, you had this age, you had the Iron Age, so on and so forth. You had the age where the Assyrian Empire ruled, the Babylonian Empire ruled, the Medo-Persian Empire ruled, the Greek Empire ruled, the Roman Empire ruled. Today we're at the end of Esau's world, which is the revival of the ancient Roman Empire. This is the age that Yahawashi spoke of here in the book of Matthew 13 and 40. And therefore the tares are gathered and burnt in the fire, so shall it be in the end of this age. And I'm pretty sure if you look up, NIV, as the weeds are pulled up and burnt in the fire, so it will be at the end of the age. See how big of a difference it makes when you look up these words in a different language, or the origin of the language that they came from. Now let's go from there to the same book of Matthew 24 and 3. It says, and as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? What world is this talking about? This was talking about the end of the Roman rule. Go back to the word eon, uninterrupted rule. An unbroken age. Right, because the scriptures say that, seeing that his date is determined, the number of his months are with thee, that was appointed his bounds that he cannot pass. So they had a certain period of time to rule. You know, the Lord broke that age. He wounded that beast, the head of that beast. And then for a period of 1,000 years, that beast was not able to deceive, was not able to function, was not able to maneuver, was not able to expand and use their gift of the sword to conquer the world. But after that 1,000-year age or eon came to fruition, then they came out and they started to conquer the world and deceive the world. That is the age that the Lord was talking about. And this is the time where that age is finished, because it was broken. It ruled. It was broken. It ruled again. Now it's time for it to be broken again. Because, you know, they've come to the end. Now it's time to say goodbye. All right, inside joke. Now, let's move from there to the same book, which is beautiful because within the book of Matthew 24, it gives you two examples of the word world where it means two separate things. When you jump down to the 14th verse, right? It says, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. So now, if the word world, or if you go to the English, and every word that you see, whether it be mark or world or whatever, if they all meant the same thing, would they not use the same Greek word or the same word or definition in that particular language? Well, let's see. This word world here, for the gospel to be preached into all the world, is when we go to the Greek word, is the word oikomene. Which the word oikomene, wow, check that out. Oikeo, which is to dwell, where you get the word oikos, I believe it is, which is house. And then you have gi, or geo, or ge, which is earth. Dwellers of the earth. House, earth, which is what? The entire planet. The inhabited earth. Now it means this. The portion of earth inhabited by the Greeks, because at one time they conquered the what? The known world. Because the known world back then was pretty much the Mediterranean and those Asian countries, you know, like Iran, Iraq, around those areas right there where the Persians, the Medes and all that, that was the known world, the civilized world at the time. All right. The Roman Empire, all the subjects of the empire at that time, but now, because this whole world was here before, you know, the America and everything, but it wasn't so-called civilized you know, like the so-called Roman world or the so-called Greek world, as they say. But it means the whole inhabited earth, the world, the inhabitants of the earth, men. So it's the whole earth, all right? Earth dwellers, you know, or, earth dwellers. So oikumene means the whole entire planet. So the gospel has to be preached unto the four corners of the earth for the end to come. And the Lord used or gave Esau the technology to set up what's known as the internet so that the word of the Lord can be pushed to the four corners of the earth. That's the reason why it was created. Yeah, you have truths out there. You have different things that are coming out. You know, entertainment, people do business, make money off of that, so on and so forth. But the main purpose for the web to be created by the Lord was to propagate and push this word to the four corners of the earth. You dig? I dig. The man watching. So that's the word oikumene, or the whole entire planet. Now when we go to Luke chapter 4, I know the scoffers are probably mad. It's like, damn, man, he ain't getting into no controversy, man. Man, it's been, how long it's been, man? It's been like 51 minutes, man. He's still talking about some Greek and some Hebrew, man. What's going on, man? When he gonna start talking about the IUIC and, you know, the ISUPK and all that stuff, man? I need some sauce. Fuck out of here, man. Luke 4 and 5. Salakia, you know, just ranting a little bit. Luke 4 and 5. And the devil, this actual demon Satan, taking him up, meaning Yahawashi, into a high mountain, showed unto him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. So all of these kingdoms of the whole entire planet Earth, they all had what? An age, an unbroken age from the beginning till now. And Satan showed Yahawashi these things. So when you look up this word world here, it's not the word eon, but the word oikumene. Because these would be the empires that will rule the whole planet from the beginning of time till now. But they all had their age, their world, or their age that they ruled for a certain period of time. But the whole entire planet, Earth, that was when they would rule, you know? So he showed them all of that. And he was trying to tempt Yahawashi to worship him, you know, to receive this glory. All right. So that word world is oikumene. All right. Now, let's go from there to the book of Hebrews, chapter 2. We're almost done. Hebrews 2 and 5. It says, For unto the angels hath he not put in subjection the what? The world to come, whereof we speak. That's why it says the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of the Lord. Hebrews 2 and 5. The word world there is what? Oikumene. Same word. I got a couple more. But you know what? Let me check something real quick. I don't know if it's Revelation 11 or Revelation 14. Let me see something. Okay. So let's go from there. Let's go to the book of Revelation, chapter 12, and verse 9. It says, And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the what? The whole world. In this case, you could use it as the whole entire planet. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him, meaning Esau and his technology, which are his bodyguards. So him and his bodyguards were cast down. They were taken out of rulership. That's all it means. When we look up the word world here, lo and behold, the whole is holos, which is whole, and the word world is oikumene. Oikumene, same word. the inhabited earth. Okay, this is why it's important to look these words up. Now, Revelation 16, which is the last one. Actually, I'm gonna give you one more because that one more has another word in there. Revelation 16 and looks like 14. For they are the spirits of devils working miracles. Yeah, this is dealing with Esau. This is dealing with the their military, financial, and religious systems. For they are the spirit of devils working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and to the what? To the whole world, to gather them to the battle of the great day of the power almighty. Which you go to the word whole world, the word there is holos, and the word world is oikomene. Now something just came to mind, just bear with me 1 second. I think that's 1 John 2. And right here, 1 John 2 and 2. And he is the propitiation, dealing with Yahawashi, for our sins. And not for ours only, but also for the sins of the what? The whole world. Oh, wait a minute. See, that's the whole world, man. See, everybody. Holos, cosmos, the whole world of Israel. So, slow your horses, man. All right? Holos, cosmos, the whole world of Israel. All right? Holos oikomene is the whole entire world. So you lost again. Let me see. Komitzo, to take care of, to tend. Okay, and I did a breakdown years ago on this word cosmos, cosmetic, and everything, the arrangement, but it's been a while since I did that. Lord's will, if I find it, I may re-upload it. All right, so I'm going to leave you with this one here in the book of Revelation 3, because in the book of Revelation 3, which we already know in 10, it says, because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell on the earth. Now the word world here, once again, is oikomene, and then the word earth is gay, or geo, which is also the whole entire earth, the whole entire planet. Arable land, the ground, the earth as a standing place. The earth as a whole, that's what it means, the earth as a whole. Okay? So this has been the importance of the origins of words. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say, Shalom.